What is up everybody, Fritz here, and in today's video we're finally going to fix the turbo inlet pipe on the M235i. Yes, I know it's been a few weeks, and for those few weeks I haven't really driven my car, and the reason is because I cracked my turbo inlet pipe. And if you want to know how, it's because I did it while installing an oil catch can. If you want to see it, I'll leave it right over here. And after trying Burger Motorsports turbo inlet pipe, which did not fit, I finally went with MST Performance Turbo Inlet Pipe. This is a silicone tube that is going to replace our plastic housing. And from what you can see over here, this is actually a more reinforced and stronger silicone tubing versus a silicone coupler that you see over here. It's pretty mushy. This is gonna be a lot more resistant to heat. It has the port for the part that I broke, and it includes the machined screw. Now, the best part of this install, I think, really is in this metal coupler, which is going to attach to the turbo. And the reason why I say that is because this is really gonna allow us to get our hand into that tight spot and have better mechanical advantage when we're putting this in versus putting a whole tube in from the top. And because it has this S shape here, we lose a lot of leverage when we're pushing down from the top. The force will drive down this way, but we really need to get it in past that bend. Good thing we're already gonna do that with this coupler right here. And in case you're wondering, this is actually the hybrid coupler. So this is the burrowed out version one, not the one that is meant for the stock turbo. Now, I do have the stock turbo, but after talking it over with Brian and his team over at Keys Motorsports, they assured me that this hybrid coupler is gonna work just fine for the stock turbo. And it leaves me the upgrade path if I do want to upgrade to, say, a stage 2 turbo. Other things in this kit are going to be all the included hardware, such as the screws and nuts, the hose clamps, and they include some free goodies such as a keychain, a sticker, as well as air freshener if your car needs it. You will have to squeeze your hand into this tight space. So it's a lot easier to just remove the engine cover so you have that little bit much more space. Undo this 7mm hose clamp, allowing you to pop out the first section of the airbox before unclipping the 4 clips that surround the airbox in order to just wiggle it out of place. And you can flip it on top of the engine just like that. Now, to undo the PVC hose, there is a T20 Torx screw that holds that hose right there into place. You need to undo it, and then you can pull that hose out from your stock turbo inlet. But since I cracked mine, all that I have to do is simply just pull it out. But if you want to know how to make this a whole lot easier, go ahead and click that link in the top right hand corner. And right here where my finger is, you can see this broken piece of plastic. And that is actually supposed to be a hole which a 10mm bolt passes through in order to hold this pipe into place. But because it's plastic, it also broke off. So this broke off, and this portion down here also broke off. So let's pull this out and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, as you can see here, this is where I cracked the screw that holds in that sensor. This is the housing portion that holds in that 10mm bolt. And then at the bottom where this will meet the turbo, and here you can see that this is where another flange is supposed to be, where it goes through the bolt that's attached to the turbo, and then a 10mm nut holds it into place. So that cracked off as well. This plastic piece has definitely seen better days, but it is time for us to upgrade it to something better. Now is the time for us to jack up the car and insert our jack stands. Now it's time to remove our under panel, and we can do that simply with an 8mm socket. And this is something that you definitely want to wear eye protection for, because all the road grit is going to be falling down as you're doing this. So protect your eyes and remove that under panel. Now, this is a pretty tight spot that we're going to squeeze into. So using the lower control arm as a point of reference, we're going to follow it all the way through to the underside of the engine right there where you can see this 90-degree bent hose. Going past it, we're gonna see some wiring harnesses right there. And past that wiring harness, we can see a bolt right there. And that is actually the bolt that attaches to the 10mm nut that you have to remove from the bottom of the original turbo inlet pipe. And so you won't be able to squeeze in a 10mm socket wrench, but what you can do is just use a ratcheting wrench in order to remove that nut. Now, installing this adapter is a whole lot easier from the top side of the car. And the reason why is because we're not fighting with the maneuverability of getting this hose into the turbo. And with that said, because we don't have the rest of the turbo in our way, it's gonna be easier for us to secure in that 10mm nut in order to hold this flange into place. Then we can put in the silicone turbo inlet pipe, tighten it down from the bottom, and then connect everything else back up from the top. So I'm just gonna give you the visual from underneath just so you know what to look and feel for when you're up on the top of the engine inserting in the adapter. I would also suggest that you use a flashlight from underneath the car. That way you can see that the bolt has passed through the flange, but you can feel for this as well. Push it through before threading on the OEM 10mm nut, and I prefer to use this one rather than the one from MST because it has the included washer. Then you're gonna wanna get a few socket extensions together in order to tighten it down with a 10mm socket. So this is what I meant by getting a few extensions together. We have a regular size extension here with a 90-degree bend, a long extension, and another standard extension. This is just so that we can attach that 10mm nut onto the turbo. Now once you've secured the adapter, you can slide in your silicone hose, and once that's properly seated, slide down your hose clamp. What you wanna do is make sure that your hose clamp is facing down and towards the passenger side of the car. That way, you can take an 8mm socket with a few extensions, reach in and tighten it down. And then that should be the last thing that you do before putting on the under panel and bringing the car back down. Now here, it's just gonna be a whole lot easier to attach this hose clamp to our adapter and tighten down the screw. Now this screw here, if you look at it closely, it does have a washer. You're gonna wanna put that on, but it also has a lock washer as well. So put on the regular washer, then the lock washer. Then once you've done that, you can thread it in. Now I'm not sure exactly what kind of head this is, but if my tool set serves me right, this is just a number 3 of an Allen head. Now once the connection is fitted to the metal housing, just go ahead and slide it into your turbo inlet for tightening down the hose clamp. Now from here, it's pretty easy. All that we do is insert our air intake into our turbo inlet. Now before you tighten down this hose clamp, you want to make sure that this edge of the air intake is properly seated all the way around on the turbo inlet. Then you can just tighten it down with 8mm socket before coming in and attaching the rubber grommet. And lastly, attaching the 4 clips onto the air box. And now we can place back in our engine cover before closing the hood. And just like that, you finished installing your MST Turbo Inlet pipe on your n55 engine. Now comparing it to the other turbo inlet pipe that I installed, this is a whole lot easier because again, we have the mechanical advantage to get the adapter flush onto the turbo, tighten it down without any obstruction, and then we can place in the pipe. And because it is silicone, although it is very, very rigid, it is still more pliable than metal and even plastic. So when we're moving it around the engine bay to get it underneath those oil hoses, it's a whole lot easier. We can kind of sneak it in, whereas that clearance we wouldn't be able to get on a plastic or even an aluminum turbo inlet pipe. So if you have any questions for me, leave it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.